Good morning, students. Today we will continue with our chapter number 1, the Indian Constitution. In last session we saw that why is the Constitution need in any particular democratic societies. Today we will recap the reasons why the Constitution plays an important role in democratic societies by recalling the consecutive rules that you have read about through this example. Here some examples are given that why the Constitution plays an important role in democratic societies. So the first example is the people of Nepal adopted a new constitution after the success of the people's movement for democracy that we saw in the last video. Last video we saw about that how the Nepal's people movement for democracy and how they gained democracy after the monarchy. So what is the constitutive rules there? So it lays down ideas that define the kind of country that we want to live in. Then we saw some demonstrative situation about Suresh, that the class monitor wrongly picks on Anil and his classmate. Then the third example, the girl do not get to play basketball because the boys are a majority in class. And the last situation we saw that the Shubham decide to receive her chapters instead of watching TV. Today we will see about the key features of the Indian Constitution. Now what are the key features of Indian Constitution that we will understand. Now let us try and understand the ways in which the above points get translated into certain ideals and rules by studying some of key features of the Indian Constitution. Some key features. So by the beginning of the 20th century, the Indian national movement had been active in the struggle for independence from British rule for several decades. So in the beginning of the 20th century, the Indian national movement means all the Indian peoples were busy with their struggles for independence from the British rule from several decades. Means from many years they had a struggle for the national movements. मतलब यहाँ पे क्या है कि जब 20th सेंचुरी की शुरुआत हुई तब यहाँ पे हमारे देश में आज़ादी के लिए, ब्रिटिश रूल से आज़ादी के लिए कई दायकों से क्या एक नेशनल मूवमेंट्स चल रही थी, स्ट्रगल चल रहा था भारत देश की आज़ादी के लिए. ड्यूरिंग द फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल द नेशनलिस्ट हैड डिवोटेड अ ग्रेट डील ऑफ टाइम टू इमेजिनिंग and planning what a free India would be like. So during the freedom struggle, some nationalists, some national leaders had devoted some great deal, and they imagined they had planned, or they were planning about the future. What about the future? They have future planning about the India, that what would be like the free India. What are our plannings for after gaining freedom. So in this way they had some plan and they are planning and imaging for free India would be like. मतलब यहाँ पे क्या था कि जब यह फ्रीडम का स्ट्रगल चल रहा था, फ्रीडम के लिए कोई मूवमेंट्स चल रही थी, तब हमारे जो नेशनलिस्ट थे, हमारे जो नेशनल लीडर्स थे, वो लोग क्या कर रहे थे कि अगर इंडिया फ्री होता है तो फ्री इंडिया कैसा होना चाहिए, आज़ादी के बाद भारत की सिचुएशन क्या होगी और भारत देश को ऊंचा तरक्की पर लाने के लिए, आगे बढ़ाने के क्या क्या होना चाहिए, तो वो सब इमेजिन और वो लोग प्लानिंग कर रहे थे. अंडर द ब्रिटिश दे हैड बीन फोर्स्ड टू ओबे रूल्स दैट दे हैड वेरी लिटल रोल इन मेकिंग. द लॉन्ग एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ ऑथोरिटेरियन rule under the colonial state convinced Indians that free India should be a democracy in which everyone should be treated equally and be allowed to participate in government. So under the British rule, they had been forced to obey rules. Whatever the rules were made by Britishers, we have to follow or we have to obey their rules. If we are not obeying their rules, they will give punishment. They send them to the prison. Understood? So in this way we have to obey their rules. If you are not obeying their rules, they will give you punishment, means they will give you punishment. And our role was very little in the British government. So the longest experience of the authoritarian rule under the colonial state convinced that if India will free, if India will free, or if India will get the freedom, then what kind of government they have? India should be have a democratic government. India should have their own government, and there will be no dictatorship. So this kind of planning were there in the mind of our nationalists, and they believe that every under the democracy, or according to democracy, all the people of India were treated equally, and all can participate for the government. All are participant, or all are the eligible for the government. What remained to be done then was to work out the ways in which a democratic government would be set up in India, and the rules that would determine its functioning. This was done not by one person, but by a group of around 300 people who became the member of the Constituent Assembly. So what happened? That what remained to be done then was to work out ways in the which democratic government would be set up for in India, and the rules that would be determined its functioning. So, and this thing was not done by only one person, but there was a group of 300 persons. 300 national leaders were there in the Constituent Assembly, and they had lots of meeting for our constitution, and they formed a Constituent Assembly. So 300 members were there in our Constituent Assembly, and in 1946 who met periodically for the next 3 years to write India's constitution. So these 300 members, these 300 Constituent Assembly members met periodically. Matlab for the 3 years they met. So sometime after 3 months gap, after 1 month gap, after week gap, they meet periodically, and then they covered all the things in our constitution. They cover all the religion, they cover all the castes, they cover all the people, and they think about all the people. They thought about all the people, they thought about all the religion, they thought about everything. Understood? And then they write our Indian Constitution. These members of the Constituent Assembly had a huge task before them. The country was made up of several different communities who spoke different languages, belonged to different religions, and had distinct cultures. So these members, the members who were the members of Constituent Assembly, had a huge task before them. Means this is a huge task. Means they have to write Indian Constitution, not per their view, but as per the view. They have to keep in mind that they are writing their this constitution for the India, and in this India there are and our country was made up of several different communities. There are lots of communities: Hindu community, Muslim community, Jain community, Parsi community, many Sikh community, many communities were there, and they have to keep in mind about their languages, their culture, their religion. Understood? So all these things they have to keep in mind. They don't want to harm anyone's rituals, anyone's customs. They just want to make, or they just want to give a equal right to everyone. And this is not an easy task for them. So this is a very tough task for them, and they have to make Indian Constitution with the keep in mind that all the Indians are there, all the Indians are equal. Also, when the constitution was being written, India was going through considerable turmoil. the partition of the country into India and Pakistan was imminent. Some of the princely states remained undecided about their future, and the socio-economic condition of the vast mass of the people appeared dismal. So, when they were writing or constitution was being written, India's situation was very turmoil. Matlab India's situation was very pathetic. They going through the considerable turmoil, means they study many other countries' constitution. They studied, they discussed with leaders of many countries, and then what was there in their country, how they follow in their countries, understood all these things they discussed. And the most important thing, when they had written the constitution, the most important task of that time was the partition of India and Pakistan. So the partition of India and Pakistan was an event, and so many princely states were there in our country at that time, and many of the princely states are undecided that what are their future. They are not knowing what is their future. They don't know whether they want to join Pakistan or they want to join India. Some of them want their princely state as a country. So all these problems were there at that time. So all these things they have to keep in mind during they are writing the constitution. All of these issues played on the minds of the members of Constituent Assembly as they drafted the constitution. So thus they rose an occasion and gave this country a visionary document and reflect the respect for maintaining diversity while preserving national unity. So when they written or when they had write the constitution, lots of issues were there in the minds of our members of Constituent Assembly, and as they had drafted the constitution, so they rose to occasion and gave this country. And what is the motto of the our constitution? That visionary document reflects respect and maintaining diversity while preserving national unity. Means they don't want to break the national unity. They just want to keep national unity. They just want to keep nation united. They don't want to break unity of any Indians. The final document also reflects their concern for eradicating poverty through socio-economic reforms, as well as emphasizing on crucial role of peoples can play in choosing their representative. So the final document also reflect, means the final document of our Constituent Assembly was also reflect that eradicating means our poverty, our nation was not rich at that time. There are lots of poor. There are lots of socio-economic reforms we need. So all these things they keep in mind. They just emphasize on the crucial role of people. Then they can play in choosing their representatives. They can choose their representatives as per their choice. They don't want any dictators. They just want to establish democracy in our nation. So till here we will see about this chapter. We will learn afterwards in next session.